This morning's consumer price data for the month of February eased concerns over rising inflation. We also saw Treasury yields dipping following the report. U.S. stocks are taking off. The Dow is setting a record high, and we just saw that the U.S. House passed $1.9 trillion in stimulus. What does this all mean for Bitcoin?
It's clear from the start.
What are you going for? One of everything.
Charismatic.
Sorry, so this is Scott.
And outrageous.
I am the tequila master on this planet.
John McAfee.
Are you sure you've got enough, John?
What do people want? Do they want a job, or do they want to never have to work again? If what you want is Social Security and you want to be able to retire early at age 40 and paint and live with your family and enjoy your life, you don't want cheap pizza, and you don't want free streaming YouTube and Netflix. That's patronizing. I don't want to work till I'm 80 and have cheap YouTube.
Against this background, the Governing Council decided the following. First, we will continue to conduct net asset purchases under the Pandemic Emergency Purchase Program.
So the stimulus is great news for Bitcoin. Of course, the dollar and Bitcoin are in stark contrast, and that contrast can be seen when billions and trillions of dollars of new dollars get printed. Well, there's only ever $21 million of Bitcoin that will ever be in existence.
With a total envelope of 1,800 billion euros until at least the end of March 22, and in any case, until the Governing Council judges that the coronavirus crisis phase is over.
Has a very well-stocked bar.
We've moved on to gin.
I'll take it.
What I want is to work till I'm 40, buy a bond, and stop working.
And an unquenchable thirst for life.
I'm Yale. Champagne.
So now we've moved seamlessly on to vodka. Now, is that it?
I think we're done.
What's it like being John McAfee?
I think that what we're just watching is we are seeing kind of the old boys club of Wall Street and the financial system being broken down. And again, anyone in the world can now go on to an open, decentralized protocol with an internet connection, and they can play the same game. There's a level playing field. And so what I think you're seeing is that the power in the masses is much bigger than anyone ever kind of anticipated.
Last time we saw the price of Bitcoin rise in the face of the last stimulus, and I expect that again this time.
That the inflation rate of assets was 8% a year from 2010 to 2020. It was 35% from March of 2020 to March of 2021. And if you're 21 years old and you've got a job earning cash, you just saw your assets inflate by 25 or 30%. That's the risk of inflation.
Well, I doubt that you would want to walk in my shoes for more than 24 hours.
And if you're not actually able to keep up, stay ahead of that, you're getting poorer. So if you're a laborer, if you have a job and your salary didn't go up by 25% in the last 12 months, you got weaker. You got poorer.
When you start to look at things in the traditional world, GameStop, et cetera, I think that's just a macro environment thing, right? We've got a Federal Reserve that's doing all kinds of crazy stuff that is just pumping liquidity into a market. And so naturally, I think people are just running around with extra money sloshing in the system, and they're finding it in stocks. They're doing real estate, precious metals, Bitcoin, crypto. I mean, just everything seems to be going up against the dollar. And so I think that's just more macro environment situation.
All right. We're also seeing, from the news reports I mentioned earlier, Digital Currency Group is buying up GBTC shares at a discount. Last week, they were trading at $41 compared to a record $58 set last month. Do you think the launch of 3 Bitcoin ETFs in Canada and other Bitcoin Trust competitors are taking away market share?
Walking in the shoes of hard-drinking, pistol-packing renegade John McAfee is exactly what I'm about to do.
I sleep with a pistol in my hand.
And in the space of a day, the eccentric computer genius
Let's run back inside.
and accused killer covers a lot of ground.
Gee, you've had a fascinating life, haven't you?
I don't know, it seems normal to me.
Well, you just don't want to buy a house. That's not for you, right? These are not the droids you're looking for. It's patronizing and it just reminds me of this one famous phrase. All of our research shows us we can't tell people what to think, but we can tell them what to think about.
Bitcoin is up for the 7th straight day this week. That's the longest winning streak of the year so far.
So you could actually buy Bitcoin cheaper by buying GBTC than Bitcoin itself.
International fugitive, you've run for president, you're the king of cybersecurity. This is not a normal life.
The normal life should be doing what you damn well please, and I do what I damn well please.
And doing what McAfee damn well pleases begins the moment he sits down.
And so if I just repeat CPI, there's no inflation, there's no CPI, CPI is inflation, there's no inflation, CPI, there's no inflation, we're waiting for CPI. If I keep repeating that, you'll agree with me. But meanwhile, the Fed prints $1 trillion, the stock market spikes, and people don't say, oh my God, assets have inflated. There's hyperinflation in assets.
That the oversaturation of these Canadian ETFs is really affecting GBTC too much. I think there are other reasons as well, such as soft equities last week.
Smoking during the interview?
I don't know what the Australian attitude towards smoking is, and quite frankly, I don't care because I am going to smoke.
Well, I get the sense that you sort of make your own rules, and that's how it is.
You asked me for the interview. I didn't ask you.
What they say is, oh, we're brilliant. The stock market's going up. Isn't that great? Well, it's not great for people with cash. By the way, here's the problem. It's not great for any company that's valued based on fiat cash flows.
At the same time, JP Morgan is launching this cryptocurrency exposure basket where you can buy debt instruments tied to stocks related to Bitcoin, like MicroStrategy. Is this a product you would recommend, or, should people just buy Bitcoin?
These days, McAfee lives in a fortified mansion at a location he insists we keep secret.
Above 57,000 today, getting closer to that all-time high.
And so you're destroying the wealth.
So I actually do think it's an interesting product. And we've seen things, ETFs going, different sorts of ETFs being launched, ones that buy equities and companies that are investing in blockchain and crypto, and of course the JP Morgan option. So right now what it's about for many investors is getting the diversification that crypto assets and blockchain technologies provide. And I do think the JP Morgan product is interesting.
In the past year, Bitcoin's strongest bull case has really been the idea that it's a hedge against inflation. That use case promoted by Paul Tudor Jones and some other billionaire investors.
And then that drives people out of the system, and so you have to then look at either gold or Bitcoin.
The Pandora's box has been opened. Everybody's going, I wish I'd gotten in on Bitcoin at the beginning. This is the beginning.
Tell me a bit more about your near-term and long-term outlook on Bitcoin.
I went to visit a secret vault in the Swiss mountains where a company stores its customers' Bitcoins.
But that's a small thing. A wife trying to kill you is not so bad. I mean, there are worse things a wife can do, trust me.
And, the answer is Bitcoin, not gold.
So what I do at Bitbull Capital is we attempt to get Bitcoin at a discount, and through that, I'm able to have partnerships with different mining companies. So one thing that's interesting is I'm seeing a lot of selling pressure in these high, around that last high, 57, 58. We're now at 56K, of course, for Bitcoin. So it'll be really interesting to see whether there's stability at the level of 58K once we reach that again, or whether there's a lot of downward pressure as there was last time.
Even here at his mansion, McAfee is on edge, perhaps unhinged.
So I'm back inside.
Yeah, sure.
He's worried the drug cartel and the Belize government are still after him.
If we're able to get stability, the Bitbull Capital pricing target for Bitcoin by the end of the year is 100K. And I do think we could, if we get stability at 58K, be at even 75K by the end of April. We've seen it appreciate by about 95% year to date.
And if you bought gold, you got destroyed. But if you bought Bitcoin, you did well.
Talk me through this, John. What's going on here?
That's very bullish.
And all of that's being driven by monetary policy. But I think if you ask me that question now, today, thinking from first principles, I have to say the Federal Reserve and the EU Central Bank have tripled the cost of capital. And that's made your investment decision much easier. What they've done is they put 95% of every company underwater.
You can't help thinking John McAfee enjoys the drama. This is a man who's always lived life on the edge. The reckless world he inhabits suits him down to the ground.
It's loaded, so be careful.
It's got just a laser. If you can see the laser on the wall.
Right, okay.
Light plus laser, light without laser. Then you've got the retractable stock. I can go through a door sideways with this thing, right? Try that with an AR-15 or an AK-47. You can't do that.